First of all, I am very glad to have this opportunity, more or less regularly have exchange both of the information and of the needs we have in as our previous ambassador said, very complicated, many years collaboration. And now I want to use this occasion for some urgent issues, discuss them. Whereas, as already mentioned, that Ukraine now has a presidency in the Danube strategy. And as you can see from the later part of the slide, we have more long collaboration in the, for instance, in Carpathian strategy. And on the other hand, we have a very long story of our regions and countries collaboration in the previous centuries, which now are reflected in these huge challenges what we face for today. But I want to speak also about the second presidency which just started. This is Romanian presidency in 3 Seas initiative. And on my opinion, the last events concern Ukrainian and also Moldovan candidate status, make it some shadow for the second event. It was simultaneously the entering Ukraine and also suppose Moldova as a partners of 3 Seas initiative. And now my opinion that I can shoot you, I should inform you on these practically new opportunities. Together with the experience of pilot Euroregion upper route, which was especially nominated for these issues 20 years ago by the governments of all our 3 countries, especially Ukraine and Romania. And let's start. You have the last decisions of the European Union practically on the eve of candidate status obtaining. They look for the new necessary steps for Ukrainian integration, and they had the last continuation in Lugano on the beginning of this month, where was proclaimed on one hand the huge proposals of Ukrainian recovery after the war. And in parallel, the principles of Lugano, how it will be done, and especially on the transport systems in our region, which I will use immediately, especially because this is the priority number 1, both in the Danube strategy and in the 3 Seas initiatives. And we have a very famous ground, I can say it's outstanding, because we have the history of collaboration, especially the many centuries, but especially this is the second half of the 19th century, still the beginning of the First World War, because we had here interest and struggle between 5 empires, and practically they formulate the ground for our collaboration, I can say, in a very interesting situation after the Crimea Eastern War in the middle of 19th century, which have fantastic set of common features and I suppose consequences with the nowadays Russian war in Ukraine. They are grounded, for instance, on the transport systems, which was developed in the time of, especially of the Austrian monarchy in the north. You see here is Bucharest, here is Chernivtsi. And now the experts of all 14 countries of Danube strategy, and 10 of them are countries now of the 3 Seas initiative, elaborated, just presented this spring, the last vision of development of those railways, which you see in the left corner, started 100 years ago. And this is the common priority of both macro-regional strategies what we have. From the very beginning of our collaboration in the 90s, it was shown that this it's not like crossroad. This is the trans-European from Varangians to Greeks, Baltic, Mediterranean, Middle East, and East-West Silk Way. It became practically ground for those fantastic development what we have our northern Romanian and Western Ukrainian regions in the 19th century. And therefore, from the very beginning of the process of enlargement, we had in 1997, 1999, chain of trilateral summits of presidents of our country in Ismail, in Chisinau, and in Chernivtsi, where for first time started the great idea of so-called green banana, I can say, because you see here the main zones of macro-regional development. First of them very well known from the very beginning of European Union, blue banana so-called. This is the economic heart of the initial European Union. After the first large enlargement, it became the red banana. The first blue banana is gone along the line of Siegfried Maginot. The second blue banana gone along the Iron Curtain. And green banana, which was, I could show, we've spoken also about the Black Sea, but it's now very complicated. It was discussed since 2003, and especially in the framework of Central European Initiative after Italian and Austrian leadership. You see the co-publications, and as I mentioned, after meetings of 3 presidents and especially very huge discussions of the Bucharest summit in 2001, and after that, a very important visit of Ukrainian Prime Minister to Moldova on the end of 2001, and on the beginning on 2002 to Romania, you can see the last suggestion through the official visit of Romanian president to Ukraine. It's a governmental courier publication. And it was in a year supported by the World Bank after huge discussions with the director of World Bank for Ukraine, Moldova, and Belarus. You see its final suggestion, and I can say that it was foreseen even the pilot project for $40 million for this embodiment, but further events when the lack of coordination, the changing of power in our countries don't allow us to use this huge opportunity. The second way was, second opportunity was given some later, approximately 15 years ago, when the establishment of Traseka, they especially looked for the opportunity, the single, you see, the Traseka, this is the concerning the Silk Way, all the developments, but they foreseen especially for this area, special connections with the, it's practically the X of Three Seas Initiative. And thanks to common efforts of Ukrainian and Romanian, both governmental structure and especially civil society, there was a special reports. It was fantastic collaboration at that time. You see the last, this is the conclusion of the Council of European Union concerning the Danube strategy. And you see here that the idea of synergy between Baltic and Danube strategy foreseen the coherent development of both macro regions, including infrastructural connections between them. This is practically the core idea of Three Seas Initiative. And on the last pillar, I can say, of this was done when it from the very beginning of Green Deal initiative, European Green Deal. It was published in New York Times, the map of the world overheating. And it was found that around the geographical center of European continent, in our area, in this area what I speak now about, Carpathian Convention, Danube Strategy, Three Seas Initiative. This is the most overheating area all over all zones of dense population all over the world on the planet. And therefore, in the first day when it was proclaimed Green Deal, Romanian acting now Commissioner Adina Velian proclaimed that it's necessary to go very important and very prompt to the changing of multimodality, implementation of multimodality to bring out the main flows of cargoes from roads to railways and waterways. This idea practically at that time already was, this is one of those documents that I shown you, the last of European Union in May this year. It's stress implementation of this decision of the European Commission. You see these corridors as the core transport objectives of European integration of Ukraine and also of Moldova. We have a very interesting opportunity. I will show it some further, that it's also the new railway freight corridors, the last invention of the European Union, and you see the very interesting opportunity to complete it in the east by the most perspective ways, both through the all boundary region of all countries of Danube strategy, and especially the longest part. This is the borders with Romania and Moldova. They was also built in the time of the monarchies and the first steps of Romanian kingdom. And now we have a very good example of them through the history here on the northern part with this railway connection. When it was divided after the destroying of Austrian monarchy, they was divided between 4 countries, and they find immediately after the First World War the possibility to make an agreement, and in spite of the dividing of these common railways, they start to operate and operate successfully till the destroying of the Soviet Union and starting with further steps by different countries. All these ideas were supported by, you see a recommendation letter for their financing, both from the 14 countries of Danube strategy and from previous Vice President of European Commission on transport issues, where they totally support the necessary to develop these connections. What is it? You see now, there are 3 main TEN-T corridors: Northern, Danube, Rhine-Danube, and to Mediterranean. You see that we have through our countries the most short and safe corridor, bypass Carpathians. We can go from different ways through European Union territory, but this is the simplest, and historically I said they done it, they nominated Baltic Mediterranean and Trieste-Odessa, the fathers of this railways development both in Ukraine and Romania, and you can understand that they was built by English bank. It was especially established for this in Chernivtsi, and they provide both the link from Lviv to Iași and further from Galatz to Giurgiu, and just the same from these huge terminals with Hungary and Slovakia till the Odessa. You see that this Ukrainian part still was not developed and it was not included, and now it's, I suppose it's one of the main issues for Romanian presidency in the Three Seas initiative to find the good roadmap for this task embodiment. At the moment, in the 3Cs initiative, it has a very huge financial own funds, but especially if you will look on all priorities of 3Cs initiative, it's just the same as a CIF, Connecting Europe facility, would have a lot of billions of possibilities. Now it's opened the way to make common feasibility studies and to start with a huge projects. Just the same, we have the second common priority of Danube strategy and 3Cs initiative. This is energy. And sometimes it's even the first priority for today. I go on the only our region produce the source. What we have here, first of all, this is the oldest common island in Burштyn heating station, which works till last approximately 12 years, it seems to me, together Ukrainian power station together with Hungarian, Poland, Slovakian, and Romanian corridors. We have the second very interesting example. This is the Stinka Kostest. This is the Romanian Moldovan station, also built in the time of the Soviet Union, but it has a huge possibility for collaboration, even a very nice experience. And the last, the most interesting, this is the Dniester-Dnistru, largest in the Europe hydro energy accumulation station, which can provide sustainability, resiliency even of the whole 10 E corridors of European Union in the eastern part of the European Union. I supposed to speak some more about the energy issues, but after presentation of Mr. Repchin and so on, it's not necessary, I suppose. I only want to underline that we have the first common TASIS FAR project, Austrian, Ukrainian, Romanian. It was energy plan where it was foreseen this thing. And 8 years later, it was signed in Chernowitz, the process verbal with EON. I suppose you know this is the largest holding, I can say, maybe international holding of energy. When they start work huge in Romania, they totally support this idea. Therefore, I come to the last third priority. It's also very dramatic history. This is the priority digitalization. From the very beginning, you see this picture on the right. This is the picture published approximately 23 years ago. This is the possibility to involve GIS technology and spatial exchange of geospatial information. I can say that 10 years ago, on the first meeting of the new Ukrainian, Romanian Intergovernmental Commission, it was included as it seems to me it was the largest chapter in this protocol of many pages, but nothing was done for the last 10 years. Why it was so, I can even explain. Because in the European Union, after the enlargement, when Romania became a member, all the Visegrad countries, including also it nominate Visegrad Group 4+2, with Romania and Moldova, started to work on the special planning. But they did not include these neighbor regions of Ukraine, which are practically the same. They was developed together, as I said, in the Austrian age, and exclude them, it's impossible to make a sustainable system for those countries. Now I will only inform you what perspectives we have for today if we will work on this proclaimed by Commissioner Velian necessary to develop the multimodal communications on the priority one, transport. You see the picture that was demonstrated on the first meeting of the Intergovernmental Working Group of Transport and Infrastructure. It's interesting situation that Intergovernmental Commission of Ukraine and Romania, main commission for all economic, technical, scientific, and so on, they are headed now by our ministers of transport, our minister of infrastructure, and in Romania, I should not explain you who is Mr. Grindeanu. This is political level number highest level. Therefore, we have a fantastic opportunity when Commissioner Valian can support it. And it was some discussion. We have a huge problem with the food, oil, and some other flows what is necessary to transit between our countries. Therefore, in Romania, it exists at the moment, and now I will show you the idea of the main corridors and how it's look like, and this is opportunities for Romania. You can judge alone. I had a huge discussion after my presentation on the Bucharest Forum Danube strategy 3 years ago with Mr. Suciu, the former Prime Minister, Vice Prime Minister and Minister of Regional Development of Romania, and he sent especially me a letter that's he totally support all those ideas what I just shown you, and they will be included in the Romanian strategy, and already 1.5 years ago were included. For local, I give you an example of my city, but it's just the same we have in Suceava, in Iași, and Lot, where we can bring together under this aegis of common aegis of Danube strategy, Carpathian Convention, Three Seas Initiative. I can continue with other things. In the cities, we have a succession from the previous developments. When in Chernivtsi we have airport, the railway, main railway, and the road. No, we have a circular road around the city, but we can bring them together. This is the distance around 2 kilometers between them. And to finalize, I want to show you the real perspectives for development. You see the railways, airports, connections, which even not necessary to change a lot of the schedules in Romanian and Ukrainian trains. And the main, we don't need additional trains. There are trains with the interior existent. And for instance, on the main border crossing point, Vadul-Sered-Vicșani, they also already should agree the meetings. Whereas the trains from Bucharest and Suceava came before the war to Vadul-Sered, even the specially permits, it's not necessary. It only depends on the goodwill of our authorities and good agreements. Now it's became a huge problem. It's necessary to resolve them, especially with cargo flow. Now we will not speak nearest time about the passengers, but you see that it's forgotten good solutions. I also will not speak. I supposed to speak about the security problems because I had possibility to discuss them both in the United States with the governmental structures, especially with the NATO specialists. And the last discussion was in 2014 with Mr. Mircea Joană. He find they are very interesting and provide a set of meetings with the governmental structures in Romania. But I also should fix that they also had not appropriate development. At the moment, we have another situation because through last years, I personally received answers of those proposals, both from the Chief of the Cabinet of Mr. Borrell and the Chief of Cabinet of Mrs. Valian. And on this ground, on the 29th of June, there was a meeting of the National Coordinate Center of Danube Strategy. You see the protocol signed by the minister. He is the national coordinator. He is the head of the National Coordinate Center. Therefore, it was agreed our proposal to make hybrid offline and online. We will look how it will be the situation in autumn. On the meeting were undertook the common aegis of Danube strategy and the Romanian presidency of Three Seas Initiative, where I supposed to see some of you as participants in this these problems discussion and possible solutions. Thank you very much for your attention, and I will be happy to answer your question.